Hello, Raven Debate family. Let's take a look at how we are going to do signups for tournaments this year. In previous years, we have used pieces of paper on the classroom walls, and that served its purpose, but it also meant that students, parents, and coaches couldn't see who signed up for what or what the tournament information was unless you were actually in the classroom. This electronic method will allow everybody to see all the information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Let's start with the URL, which is located up here. I know you might not be able to see all of it, and that's fine. You'll never need that much information. But our students were asked to provide Gmail addresses at the beginning of the course, which means that they'll be given access to edit this spreadsheet using their Google Docs account. Now, parents will still be able to view the information. For this year only, we're not letting parents edit the spreadsheet so that we don't cause any conflicts between parents who sign kids up for tournaments and kids who don't realize it. So for this year, parents will be able to view, students and coaches will be able to edit. Let's start with this tab down here at the bottom called Tournament Tracker. You can see that the tabs indicate each weekend of the season, but we'll start with Tournament Tracker. At the top of the page, you can see that we have each of the tournaments listed for each of the weekends that we'll be competing. The first weekend, for example, September 19th and 20th, involves 4 tournaments: Washburn Rural, St. James, Blue Valley Southwest, and Gardner. Those are the tournaments that at this time we are hoping to attend. But please know that there will be weekends where we don't go to all of the tournaments listed, and there will be lots of weekends where we add tournaments. For example, we don't know if we're going to the Glen Brooks, we're not sure if we're going to Sumner, and we think on this weekend we're still looking for a few tournaments to attend. That's important because in the world of debate, coaches usually announce their tournaments and provide the details about a month ahead of time. That's because it is tougher to schedule a debate tournament when you're using the entire school building than it is to schedule a basketball tournament when you're only reserving the gym. For this reason, coaches often have difficulty pinning down the exact date of their tournament weekend. And that's especially true for smaller programs or for newer coaches or newer programs. For our tournament, we're always locked in at the beginning of the year, and that's true for a lot of tournaments. But for some tournaments, we don't get the information as quickly as we want it, which is why, for example, we have not received information for the Blue Valley North tournament, the Olathe South tournament, the Lebanon tournament. So this tournament information is blank, whereas if you look on September 19th and 20th, we've already received all of the information for these upcoming tournaments on the first weekend of the year. As a result, we have updated this spreadsheet. But in future weeks, you can see I've received 2 of the 4 invitations we're hoping to get for that weekend. I will update them as information becomes available. Okay, back to our front page here, this tournament tracker page. You can also see that we've added events that are occurring on the weekend that typically would require students to go to those obligations first. ACT, SAT, homecoming, things like the Olathe Northwest musical. Those are all things that our students should be aware of because oftentimes they take priority. Down here we see our student counter, and you can see that every student has a row, and what they do with their row is really up to them. So for example, Jack Delahanty has already chosen to add some data to his row. In this case, he said he wants to go to Washburn Rural, he wants to go to Wichita East, he wants to go to Blue Valley North, and he wants to go to Garden City. This column automatically tracks the number of cells that have data entered. So for Bonnie Dowd, I'll enter the number 1, and it will cause her to have 1 cell. But if I were to put hello, she would also have a second cell. As a result, how students use their particular row is really up to them. So for example, if you look at Derek Gall, he's put St. James here. Maybe he's going to take it 1 weekend at a time, and this is what he says he wants to do this weekend. But if you look down here at, for example, Lana Herman, you can see that she has already mapped out her entire season. That might be helpful for her partner or for her parents to see what weekends she's wanting to debate. So whether you are tracking the tournaments you're about to go to, or the tournaments that you have already gone to, or the tournaments that you want to go to, your row is for whatever you want it to be. Just make sure to communicate that to the parents and your partner. Now let's go to each of the weekends down here along the bottom tabs, and we'll start with the first weekend. The page is really divided into 3 sections. The first section is where students actually sign up. The second section is where we provide information about each of the tournaments that are happening that weekend. And if you scroll down at the bottom of the page, the third section indicates the sign-up deadlines, rules, and how to format your names. We'll get to each of these sections one at a time, but let's start with the actual student sign-up section. You can see that this sign-up section is currently fully unlocked. The sign-up sheets will either be fully unlocked, which means anyone and everyone can sign up, or they will be partially locked, which means the teams that met the deadline will be locked in, and the teams that didn't meet the deadline can still sign up, but your entry into the tournament is not guaranteed. And then we have fully locked, which means the entire tournament is locked and the information is ready for parents and students to review. An important note that if you're in our program last year, you know that we gave students paper trip sheets that contained all of the information. We're not going to do that system this year. Instead, as soon as you see that this sign up is currently fully locked, you will already have all of the information that you need for the tournament that your student is attending. We will also reorganize this part of the page so that you can see which students are attending Tournament A, which are attending Tournament B, C, and which divisions in which they'll be competing. But for now, it's fully unlocked and everybody can sign up. Let's use Jack and Marcus as an example. Jack and Marcus would like to compete in the DCI division at Tournament A. That's Tournament A is Washburn Rural High School. They're also wanting to compete on Friday and Saturday. Now, students will be able to list any preference that they want, although it's important to note that preferences will not always be honored. A good reason why is we are allowed to enter 3 DCI teams into the Washburn Rural Tournament, and you can see that we have several more than 3 signed up. So just because teams sign up for a particular division or a particular tournament doesn't guarantee that they'll get into that tournament. That's where the coaches have to come in and make some decisions. Now, the only thing that you are guaranteed of is that if you tell me you want to compete on Friday and Saturday, I will try to get you into a tournament that has rounds on Friday and rounds on Saturday. And if you tell me you only want to compete on Saturday, I will honor that preference too. So Katie and Josie have signed up for a Saturday tournament, in which case they want to go to Tournament B, which is Blue Valley Southwest. Now, I can't guarantee Katie and Josie that we'll get into Tournament B, but I can guarantee that I'm not going to schedule them on Friday and Saturday because I assume they have something else going on Friday night. So, students will continue to sign up in the weeks prior to the tournament. If you look at upcoming weekends, you can see that students have already started signing up, and as a result, they're pretty far in advance. These are the students, and most of our DCI students have already decided that these are the weekends I want to go to, so they've already filled out the whole season in advance. So let's take a look at the different divisions. A lot of parents oftentimes have questions about what each division means. The DCI division is the ultra-fast, high-intensity speed debate. Some debaters absolutely love that style of debate, and other debaters don't like it as much. So that's the DCI division. The varsity division tends to be 3rd and 4th year debaters who don't like that ultra-fast style of debate, but they like the good, persuasive debate that you might see, for example, presidential candidates engaging in. Open is for any student at the tournament who's probably not ready for varsity, but is probably more advanced than JV or novice. JV is specifically 2nd year debaters at most tournaments, and novices are, of course, 1st year debaters. These 2 divisions will protect students from hitting 3rd and 4th year or more advanced kids. So those are the different divisions. Let's jump over to here and start looking at this information in this column. I've tried to make it as generic as possible. I may continue to edit it as we refine our tournament information. For the first tournament, Washburn Rural High School, it's a big deal. It's the first tournament of the year, and it's pretty competitive and sort of an opening showcase. So for this one tournament, we're going to have 3 coaches going to that tournament, myself, Eric Skoglund, and Mark Skoglund. At Blue Valley Southwest, we're going to have Kathy Ingalls, St. James Academy, we're going to have Jessica Skoglund, and so on. I've also listed each of the divisions for each of the tournaments so that students can see where they would have an opportunity to compete if they had a preferred division. So if you really want to be in a JV division, you might want to be signing up for Blue Valley Southwest. If I see that you are JV on Saturday for that tournament, and there is only JV division at that tournament, and it matches your other criteria, then you will probably end up going to that tournament. If Katie and Josie had signed up, for example, for the open division, then I would probably be sending them to St. James. So what you sign up for can have a bearing on what tournament you end up going to. For those students who signed up for the DCI division, they may or may not get to go to Washburn Rural, even though Washburn Rural is the only tournament that has the DCI division. But let's say, for example, picking a random team that Mitchie and Smith did not get to go to DCI, I might send them to Blue Valley West, Southwest, or a different high school. Same with any of these other DCI teams. So we'll give them the best competition that we can possibly give them, but we're going to have to make some tough decisions about which teams we send into which divisions. Okay, continuing on. Now, Washburn Rural is an overnight, and you can see on our tournament tracker that we've got several weekends: Washburn Rural, Hutchinson, Wichita East, Garden City, potentially Shawnee Heights, Mays. Those will all be overnight tournaments. The rest of them will be by bus, by suburban, or by parents providing the transportation. But for Washburn Rural, it's an overnight. For Blue Valley Southwest, it would be Saturday only. Same for St. James. And if we attend Gardner, that would be a Saturday-only tournament too. We'll take a bus or suburban to Washburn High School. These three tournaments are in Johnson County, and they are not Bishop Miege High School, which is the one high school we don't allow students or parents to drive students to because it's kind of far away and a little hard to get to. So any tournament in Johnson County on a Saturday would be a tournament to which you would drive yourself. Friday dismissal for those tournaments that have Friday rounds. Washburn Rural is a little bit different. We excuse the students all day. Part of that is because we're leaving at 10 o'clock anyway, and partly because with the opening weekend of the year, we give the kids an extra hour or so to finish that last-minute prep. For any student who wanted to attend their 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock class, they certainly would be encouraged to do so. Now, you will often see a gap in time because in between the time that students are dismissed from class and the time they actually leave. I'll give you an example. If we were attending the Olathe South tournament and the Olathe South tournament had rounds on Friday, students might be dismissed from class at 2 o'clock, but the bus might not actually leave until 2:30 on Friday, and that's because students will need about half an hour to change into their debate suits and grab their tubs and get any last-minute supplies. So if you see a gap here, it's simply the time that they're dismissed from their class and the time that they actually leave Olathe Northwest. The Friday return time, if this were a Johnson County tournament, it would probably be more like 8 or 9 o'clock, but in this case it's an overnight tournament. The Saturday report time for Washburn Rural, you'll report to the hotel lobby at 7:15 a.m. For the other tournaments, you'll report to the respective commons at 7:15 a.m. That's so that we can get registered, get settled, and because we typically have a large squad that's bigger than most squads, believe it or not, getting at 7:15 is important so that all of our students can sit together. If we get there at 7:30 or 7:45, then we don't get to sit together as a team. Okay, where to meet? We've gone over that, so you usually meet in the commons unless otherwise specified. The Saturday return time tends to be a window of time for tournaments that have elimination rounds, and it tends to be a rough about time for tournaments that don't have elimination rounds. You can see at this schedule that this cell ought to be corresponding with this cell. So for tournaments that have 5 rounds, and you'll note for Blue Valley Southwest, their round 4 starts at 12:30, so there's not much of a lunch break, whereas St. James is allowing a lunch break, and so their 4th round won't start until 1:30. That causes a bit of a difference in when the awards are starting, and awards usually take about 15-20 minutes. So we say about 4 p.m. or about 5 p.m. because tournaments sometimes run behind, and we can't guarantee exactly when they'll finish up. The school address is provided, particularly helpful for those tournaments where parents would be driving and transporting students. When we are using a hotel, we'll get that information to you as quickly as we have it. I really kind of want to see who we're sending and look at rates and get the best rates that we can. This will be helpful for students to know what the tournament is saying their prep time policy is. It's usually either 5 or 8 minutes, and this is how the students get to find out. Now let's take a look at the schedules. You've already kind of looked at the schedule for these 2 tournaments. Washburn Rural is a little bit different. Varsity and Open have 3 rounds on Friday. First round's at 3:30, second round's at 5:15, third round's at 7:15. Varsity and Open also have 3 preliminary rounds on Saturday, 8, 9:45, and 11:45. Then, for Varsity and Open, you'll have quarters, sems, and finals. For the novice division, their first round is not until Saturday at 8:15 a.m. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to leave the novices in Olathe on Friday night. We're still going to take them with us, partly so that they can have a couple practice rounds in the Commons on Friday at Washburn Rural High School, and maybe even sneak in watching an open team, which we think might help build their confidence once they can kind of see a debate coming together. But for the novices, there are no elimination rounds because the novices' final round is at 3 o'clock, which means that that's probably too late to start many elimination rounds. So, quarters is the first elimination round for Washburn Rural. It starts at 2, SEMS is at 4, finals is at 6. Be aware that those times are probably not very accurate. They're based on best intentions, but the reality is that tournaments often run behind, and for good reason. We want to make sure that we do everything right, and we're dealing with teenagers who aren't always expeditious about moving from one place to the other. So there's sometimes some visiting between rounds and things like that, and that's fine. But just when it says 6 o'clock, please don't look at your clock and think that finals is necessarily starting at that very moment. That also impacts the arrival time when we get home. That's, again, why we give a window. At a tournament like Washburn Rural, we would probably need to feed the kids on the way home, and that could be anything from a sit-down restaurant with waiters, waitresses, or it could be fast food. It just sort of depends on where we're at. Any other meal notes that they have, these students will bring a sack lunch because we won't be leaving the tournament, whereas for Washburn Rural, we'll actually kind of have a note that says how much money to bring, who's going to pay for what, and how that all works. Now down here are the coach phone numbers, and they're awfully important. You may want to put them into your cell phone so that you can get a hold of us. And the reason for that is that even though you might have my cell phone in your phone number, which is great, you should definitely have that. If you needed to get a hold of your student who is at Blue Valley Southwest, Kathy Ingalls would be a better contact for you to call rather than me, because I won't be at that tournament. Of course, if you can't get a hold of Kathy Ingalls, then by all means, you should be giving me a call, and I'll make sure that we put you in contact with your kid as quickly as possible. All right, let's scroll down to the bottom of the page. This will be the last thing we look at today, and that's the sign-up deadlines, rules, and formatting examples. Not necessarily going to go over everything down here, but I'll definitely hit the deadlines and some of the more important rules. The 10-day deadline, even though in some cases it's actually 11 days if it's a Saturday-only tournament, are Wednesdays at 4 p.m., 10 days in advance. So a week and a half before the tournament. The deadline at 4 p.m. is for everyone who has signed up. Now, if you've signed up before the 10-day deadline, you're guaranteed to either compete in the tournament, or I will send you in a suit with your partner ready to debate and fill in any cancellations. And if you don't get to debate, you'll observe and automatically earn 150 competition points. The 7-day deadline is for students who missed the 10-day deadline, but they still really want to go to the tournament. And although I've already sent our entry for the school to the host school, I will try and amend that entry, although most coaches are leery to do that. There's also, penalties for canceling teams, so it's to our advantage to send in an accurate entry of who signed up by the 10-day deadline. The 5-day deadline is Monday, the week of the tournament. That's when any last chance to make requests or changes. This is also when I will lock the spreadsheet fully. And because it's locked, all changes have to go through me. It is important to note that, with 100 kids on the squad and my memory not being 100% perfect all of the time, students really need to be emailing me with any changes. If you tell me during the passing period or catch me in the hall between classes and tell me that you need to cancel or you're going to change partners, I may not remember that. And so if you're going to make any changes, it has to be over email. Okay. The last deadline is important. It's the 2-day deadline, and that's if you need to leave the tournament early, you have to let me know Thursday by 4 o'clock. The truth is that a lot of students have afternoon things going on. Maybe your family is leaving for Hayes because of Grandma's birthday, and you need to leave as quickly as possible, and your parents are willing to pick you up at the tournament on the way out of town. That's fine by me. I don't have a problem with that as long as you complete all preliminary rounds. There's usually an hour or two between the time that you finish your final round and the time that you would actually be getting on the bus to go home or getting in the car to go home. And so if that 2 hours makes a difference, and you let me know by Thursday at 4 p.m., we can almost always approve those. However, if you've just had a bad day and you're ready to go home and suddenly you're telling me that you have to go to work or that you have to go to Hayes for Grandma's birthday, that would warrant maybe a parent phone call or something like that before we let you leave the tournament. And so, as a rule, you have to let me know by Thursday at 4 p.m. if you anticipate needing to leave the tournament early. Otherwise, everybody stays, we work together as a team, and we're there as a team until the end of the award ceremony. All right, some information on when the spreadsheet will be locked and unlocked, and some information about the rules. Take a look at these rules. I'll let you sort of read them on your own because I don't want to read them all to you. and as a result, well, you can read them yourself. Okay, if a student ever has a partner cancel or a student wants to attend a tournament but his or her partner cannot go, we have what are called free agents. So if Johnny and Susie are partners and Susie cannot go to a debate tournament and Johnny really needs to get to that tournament because he needs it for his grade or he just loves debate, Johnny can still sign up with another debater who's sort of in the same position, and each of them becomes free agents. So there's information on how to sign up as free agents, and then finally some information for formatting signups. That is the electronic sign-up for this year. I think it's going to be very effective. Remember that you can look at the information anytime. So Mondays of the tournament is when we'll try to assign students to specific divisions at specific tournaments. Once you see that this sheet is fully locked, you know that the selections have been made and you can start making definitive plans. So for example, if this were to say fully locked, then Mitchie and Smith know that they are definitely going to DCI at Washburn Rural. If it says fully unlocked, then we haven't made any decisions. We're still letting students just sign up for the tournaments as they please. Partially locked means that the students who are locked in will get full credit or the opportunity to compete, and students who are still signing up will we'll try and get them in, but there'll be no guarantee. So that's the tournament sign-up process for this year. I hope you find it to be effective. I hope you'll also email me with ways to make it better. Some of it's experimental, but most of it is kind of locked in terms of policy and process, and we're pretty happy with it. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know, and best of luck signing up this year.